Hi, hello guys. I am going to be playing some more chess against Harry Hasparov, Pablo Schäfer, and we're going to be playing 5+5 this time. We sorted out his internet, so hopefully we don't get disconnected this time. I'll play rated against him, and yeah, hopefully can provide some instructive commentary and see how this goes. Just put that on there so you can see me. Put that there, and hopefully he accepts my challenge. Let's see where he is. I've since the last game, oh here he is. Since the last game, been looking at some more of the correct lines in this Grunfeld line. So let's play e4. He plays a carrier pawn. Let's see if we can get a nice attacking position against him with this fantasy variation, as they call it, because I've been playing this recently and quite enjoying the positions. One of the ideas here is actually e5, followed by bishop c5 after d takes e5, and the idea is I can't castle, but I win a pawn, and it's very sharp, and or even e6, but that's the reason why this line isn't particularly popular at the top level. But he hasn't been playing that, he's actually been taking e4 and giving me a lovely centre, so let's see if we can keep tricking him into doing this. Okay, he plays c5, which again is something he's been playing, but I'm fairly sure it's not good. Let's try and play nice and quickly and get him low on time. So how does he plan on winning his pawn back? Because if he takes on e4, I'm going to trade queens, then play f takes e4. Otherwise, this just looks a bit dodgy for him, doesn't it? I guess he can play e6 and claim that even though he's got an isolated pawn, that my king won't be able to castle, but instead he plays d4. And here I'm just going to try and take it. If he plays knight c6, then... Okay, well he doesn't. I'm just going to attack his pawn structure here, which is quite strong, but here if he takes, I take back with a knight. Well, if he takes first, then I'm going to trade queens and take back with a knight, and I have an extra pawn and I'm more developed. If he plays knight c6, then I will probably take once and then play queen a4, but he doesn't. He does this instead. This makes sense, actually. This makes sense. Let's take. I'm going to take back with a pawn, unless he's being really timid, but taking back the bishop would be bad, because at the moment his bishop's his strongest piece, stopping me castling. And if he takes back with a pawn, yeah. Now what I want to play is knight to f4 back to d3 to blockade the pawn, and I can do that with an extra tempo because I win against his bishop. It's whether I do that immediately, and I think that I do, because otherwise if I play knight to d2, then he can maybe push d3 straight away, which looks a bit scary. So let's... Ooh, actually that's fine. For a minute I thought he had queen h4 check, but then I realised I'm actually defending my knight with my bishop. I'm clearly not particularly sharp today, but I do have my tea, so hopefully that will change things. It's not coffee, even though it says it's just a massive cup of tea. And they also have some chocolate cake. I quite like this position. If I can get knight d3, bishop e2, sort of queen a4 check, knight to d2 to b3, then I think I like my position. It's whether I can do all that before he has something quick. So let's play here first, giving me the chance to castle if I need to. Let's just castle first. Oh, no, I have to come here first, because if I castle first, he's going to push d3 check, and that would be really bad. Again, we're being very slow with my calculation here, but apparently not as slow as Pablo because he's down a minute and a half here, which I like to see. So he's going to move his bishop back to, I think d6 might be the right square because it's quite hard for me to attack this pawn on d4, and on b6 I think this is the wrong square because he's just hitting his own pawn for no reason. He doesn't need to defend it, but he is defending it. So let's just castle, and then I'm going to play king h1. It's very important. This knight is a very important piece because it's doing a very important blockading job. Let's just develop and come into knight c4. Although against knight c4, actually, this might be a slightly immature move because then he goes bishop c7, and his bishop's actually a lot better on c7. And I might want to give him the chance to try and work that out for himself. Because on c7 he has bishop c7, queen d6, and it's actually quite hard for me to defend my king side without pushing pawns. And you know, if I push g3, then he has bishop h3. It might be fine, but it looks a bit tricky for a blitz game. But I think I quite like my position here, because this pawn's going nowhere, and if anything, it's a weakness. And I have quite a nice pawn structure as long as I can defend my dark squares. One idea here might be to play king h1 first to get out of any problems, followed by g3 and f4. And then knight f3 and bishop can go somewhere. In fact, let's do that. Let's go here first. Because otherwise, this bishop's not getting out until this knight on d2 moves. And this knight doesn't really have a good square. In fact, let's just go... Problem is, how do I defend my e4 pawn? Because after f4, my pawn is defended. But it won't be for very long. In fact, let's just go f4. And then I can maybe push f5. And if I'm having a really good day, I can also push e5. And the pawn suddenly isn't so much of an issue. I might just have a rolling pawns down the E and F files, which could cause him problems. I think this move f4 requires a lot more calculation than I've given it, but this is a blitz game, so we'll let him calculate and work out whether it was any good on his time rather than on mine. So. Might play g6, but I think I'd be quite happy to see that because it gives me a target. Otherwise, probably the correct move is queen e7 here, because then after f5, bishop d7, then the e5 square is covered, and I can't push e5 immediately. The reason that's better than queen c7 is because this bishop on b6 belongs on c7. And further, once I move my bishop off c1, then my rook can come to c1. Yeah, this also has the same sort of idea. I just thought that maybe that rook wants to come to d8 and the queen comes here. But this does the same thing and it makes a lot of sense. So can't complain too much. I don't want to push e5 because that gives him a very juicy square on d5. I'm really, really tempted by playing g4 here. However, I don't think it's very good. So I'm going to do the mature thing and play bishop f3 first. Importantly, he doesn't have bishop c4 because my knight on d2 covers that square, otherwise that'd be a really annoying pin on my rook on f1. And otherwise, I can potentially think about ideas of pushing the pawn, and then after knight d5, taking, and then pushing f5, that kind of thing. I know it doesn't work here, but this bishop f3 gives me more options. I know I originally wanted to put my knight on f3, but that turned out to be impossible, so beggars can't be choosers, eh? You know what? I know Pablo hates tactical positions, and sometimes you have to play your opponent a bit. So, I am going to play g4 and see how he reacts. He has 30 seconds, I have 3 minutes, and this probably isn't particularly good because my king, if anything, looks looser than his. However, I can't help myself, and he's low on time, so... Okay, I think I could just take that followed by g5, and then f5 looks really strong. Let's keep the pressure up on the clock and not give him time to think. Yeah, I didn't like knight b4 because he's sort of implying that he really wants his queen on the b4 square, that he's willing to trade that knight in 2 moves just to let it happen. But I don't actually think that the queen's particularly good on b4. So now here, let's play. Having said it's not particularly good on b4, let's play a3 because what I'd like to do is push f5. But I think if I prepare that for 1 move, it might be slightly stronger because he potentially, if he moves his queen to the wrong square, won't have a good square for this bishop. Because really, after bishop b4, he wants to be able to take back with queen after knight takes. So let's see where he goes. And he's also going to have to think about this on his time now. So I'm almost going to play f5 against anything next move now. he just hung the queen on b3. I was like, wait, what have I missed here? Okay, right, next game. We can go back and look at these afterwards. See, that's what time pressure does though. The most important part of blitz. It's not an unreasonable way to play for an advantage. I'm sure he'll be annoyed about that, particularly as he knows I'm commentating on this. So just to hang a queen completely. But he tends to panic in time pressure, so I can use that to my advantage. Oh, he's going for this f3 line. So we've played a number of games in this variation. We were actually going to, before I make my move, we were actually going to be playing in the same tournament as each other, an intra-club tournament. And he was going to be paired with me, and he spent a long time preparing this rather than doing his dissertation. And since then he's been playing against me, but I find it quite funny because he hasn't had any success with it despite preparing it extensively. It ends up with these very tactical positions which he's not particularly comfortable with. Okay, let's castle here. This is all theory. And knight c6. And in this position you can push f5, but that's really sharp because after f5 he can push h4 immediately, and after f takes e then he can push h5, and it's incredibly crazy. I have to play queen d6 and swing it across and defend and go to an endgame. So I've been pushing e5, which is less critical but gives me more playable positions. And now he's going to push f4, trying to undermine the knight, and I'll push c5. If he plays d takes c3, c6, then I can just take back with the knight, and everything is defended and I have a nice structure. Now against this it's really important that I don't take with my bishop, which I learned recently. Actually first, because after taking my bishop he has knight c3, and if I take knight takes c3, g takes c3, then he opens up the g file. His centre is very well defended. So the important move first is playing bishop g4, because then he can't play knight c3. And if he pushes h3, then I have bishop into g3, and that position's good for me, I believe. So he actually goes for this. Having said that, I don't play bishop into g3 immediately, because obviously he just takes my bishop, but he's opened up that square, and that's quite good for me. Let's go back here. And now he's going to play knight f3, I presume. But I will insert this, I think. Yep, let's do that. If knight takes, pawn takes. Oh, I almost lost connection. Let's have some of this cake. This is cake my mum made. I'm isolating in Somerset at the moment with my family, and having to play chess from my bedroom. So I'm not complaining because I get given cake. So this position's clearly very sharp. He's got a potentially strong central presence here, but it's also potentially weak. And I have a lot of dynamic play, mainly with my bishops, and this knight is quite strong. To the extent that I'm wondering if I can sack it in any lines. I'll stack the pawn on c5. Yeah, I'm going to do something. I'm thinking of playing knight takes f3, g takes f3, and then h5, aiming for h4 and cementing in my bishop there. But what I don't like about that is that I've now given him an f pawn after f4, f5. It looks a bit dodgy for me. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm wondering if I can play rook c8 and just sack this pawn and say that my pressure is somewhat immense. The other move I have is queen f6. Oh, I keep losing connection. That's no good. Okay, let's just take this knight before I completely lose connection. And I'm down on time now, so I need to sort that out. I don't know why he's thinking. Surely he just takes back. And after taking back, I'm going to play here, defending my pawn. And he could try and trap my bishop here, but I don't think it works. Why is my connection so bad? I'm not sure. I think it's fine though. So he's up on the clock here, and he has some pressure. So I do need to be careful. Here I'm going to play knight here, hoping that he trades, gaining a tempo on the rook. And if he plays b3, I'm going to claim that his dark squares and his king are really weak. If he doesn't trade, then I'm probably going to play rook e8. Well, I'm probably going to play trades, queen takes, rook e8, and then try and come into e5 with my bishop, followed by things like queen b6. And really hammer down that b2 pawn. So as you can see in this position, if this was static and my pieces weren't as good, then I'll just be a lot worse here because he has a connected pass pawn and a very strong centre. But I have quicker play here and a lot of pressure against his position before he cements his pieces onto good squares. Pablo insisted on playing with increment in this game because he doesn't like being flagged, but I think really it would have done him good to have been playing without increment here, because otherwise I would probably get flagged here. Although he spent a good minute on this move now. Potentially also, even though he's got his dark square bishop, his dark spares can be quite weak here, particularly around the centre. Okay, so he does try and trap my bishop. I talked about this. But let's go. Let's take, first of all. Check. He's going to play queen takes. Okay. Okay, let's play this first so he doesn't have any tactics with taking c5 or something, opening up an attack on my bishop. If he pushes e5, that's very double-edged because my bishop becomes very strong. But let's do this first, so that he doesn't have bishop e6 and just bishop e3 and d3, sorry, in response. And if he takes with the bishop, then I just win it. I think this is incredibly double-edged. He's probably slightly better here. I'd be struggling in a classical game, but again, playing something complicated, and I trust my ability to out-calculate him in time pressure. I think c4 is actually a very nice move because this bishop belongs on f5, but if he can trade his undeveloped piece for my strong piece by playing bishop e3, then it undermines all that good work. So now he can't take the pawn, and I'm going to play bishop f5. He's going to have to play king a1, and then at which point I will play probably queen. No, maybe not. I'll play b5. I don't think he can ever take the pawn on a7 because the pressure down the a file, but with my rook coming over to a1, particularly after the king on a8, particularly after the king's on a1, looks immense. So yeah, let's play this check. I don't know how that helps him at all. I don't think that's a very good move because it actually blocks the g file, which is quite important for his rooks. I think maybe better was bishop e2. So he's going to play king h1 now. And the other thing as well is now I actually have the e3 square for my bishop, which looks really juicy. However, let's first of all play this with my idea of playing a5 if he doesn't take, and then b4. And if he does take, then I'm going to get a very, very strong attack down the a file because his king is already can't move to b1. So I even have ideas of sacking the rook and then bringing the queen across. In fact, that would be mate. If you can imagine this a2 pawn wasn't here and my rook was here, I could play rook takes a1, rook takes a2 check, king takes queen a1, queen a8, can't get my notation right, queen a8, and then, ooh, this is really asking for trouble. Okay. Because it's attempting move is c3. Also tempting is just a5 and saying, are you really going to take that b5 pawn with rook coming to b8? I guess he just is going to take that pawn, isn't it? Okay, let's just play rook here. Preparing to play a5. He's given me a5 a tempo, so I can afford to play one more move as well. If he plays bishop takes, then yeah, again I have this, and this looks really strong. I mean, I'm sure I'm just winning here. Do I not have the same... No, I don't have the same tactics as queen comes to... Ooh, how can this not be winning? Okay, let's calculate for a second. Let's play this. If queen takes... Excuse me. If queen takes b5, then I have a number of tempting options. This is really screaming out for something vicious. Where's the win? Okay. Then if he plays a3, I'm going to play c3. Or I can play rook b8. And he's getting very low on time now. Yeah. Let's just play this quickly. This looks really nice. If he takes, then I'm going to sack instantly. Okay. And now he loses because I take the bishop with check. Oh, no, I don't, because he can take with the queen. That was dim. Okay, but let's just come... Which square is better? Let's come here. Because if I go to a5... Man, does he really get away with this? This is a really crazy position, low on time. I'm going to try and talk about as much as what I can. However... Oh, and now he just drops this. And he loses. That was a short, sharp end. That was the point, that he can't move the bishop off this square because it's really important to defend a3, which is why my rook's actually quite safe on d8. Good game, Pablo. His only move is queen a2, and I can just take. So you're going to let his time run out. Good game, Pablo. Let's play another one. Okay, let's go for... He told me earlier that he doesn't know what to do against knight f3 and he gets a bit confused. So you shouldn't tell your opponents things like that, because I'm going to start playing them against you. And let's do something fun. Let's go for this. Which is extremely bad, because as black, you can play the Herrstrom gambit against one knight f3, which is one knight f3, g5. But the point after that is that you have e5, and the knight is hit and you gain the centre, whereas here I don't even have e4. So it's just like a reversed Herrstrom, but it's worse because I don't get the tempo. But that's the way things are, so I'm just going to have to try and make the most of it. But the thing is, I do get the g file. What I'm going to try and do is gain a quick centre, castle queenside, make the rook across to g1, and just sort of bludgeon him, basically. There's nothing particularly subtle about what I'm doing, but it'll make it an interesting game. So this is also not like the positions we usually get. He doesn't like this sharp sort of stuff. So okay, just keep pushing. If he goes d5, then I'll just push e5 and claim his knight's very offsides. Or in fact, maybe I'll play knights, because after that he can actually go... Really? This looks dodgy. Okay, let's go here threatening some discoveries. This is often an idea in the proper Herrstrom gambit where you play, after you play knight f3, g5, knight takes g5, e5, d4, protecting the knight. Then you play bishop e7, knight back to f3, and then e4. And you kind of get like a sort of like an Alekhins in reverse, where you don't have a g-pawn. It's not particularly good, but it's kind of interesting. Yeah, so here we might get a similar kind of thing, so I'm going to push here. Then if he comes to d5, I'll push c4. And if he goes all the way back, that's very miserable. On h5, I must have some sort of tactic revolving around the discovery. So he got a bit scared on bishop e2, but I don't think he actually had to move the knight then. He could have pushed maybe h5. I mean, just better, I think. But I trust Pablo to panic in sharp positions, so let's try and push for these sharp positions as much as possible. The thing is, even when he's better, and significantly better, like he's better at the opening here, he was, and he's in a sharp position. He just doesn't trust his calculation instinct. So this is already really quite sad for him. Like here, I have so many nice options. I would play in the centre, but I think what I'm going to do is probably the most nasty, and that is play for a very quick queenside castles, and claim that even if he castles on the queen side, that I can still attack on the king side and hopefully pick up my lost pawn and then just have more activity. Here he's going to come to, yeah, this doesn't make any sense either because I just get a tempo. That's a sort of sub 1000 move, I think, a bit of panic. I think the best move was knight g to e7 coming into f5, which was the downside of putting my bishop on e3. God, it's very tempting to push b4. How should we do it? No, let's not be silly. Let's play knight here first. And if he plays knight e7 wanting to come into d5 or f5, like he does, then it's extremely tempting to play a3 so that after... no. That doesn't work, don't worry. I was going to say a3 followed by b5 and c4, but then actually he can just trade the knight for my bishop. So instead, maybe if I play c4 first, then a3. The point is he doesn't have a5 because his bishop's on that square. Yeah, you see, I quite like that. Maybe not, because he comes to f5 anyway. Okay. Maybe his position's okay-ish. How about I just insert this first to see what he does? Because if he pushes g6, and he's weakening quite a lot, and if he castles, then I'm just going to play bishop h6 immediately and crush him. These are the kind of moves that's worth making in blitz because it takes more time for them to work out what to do. Okay, let's play here, and I don't care if he trades, he's just further strengthening my centre. I have an open g and f file now. I can maybe push e4, d5 in the future. And the point of queen c2 is not that I love this square for the queen, although it's not bad, it's just that I want to castle queen side and quickly play on the king side with my two rooks. But I'd say this position might be one of these that, you know, like Stockfish finds triple zeros for. It's kind of dynamically equal, even though no human would see it as a equal drawn position. It's important to remember that equal doesn't mean drawn, and this position is definitely not drawn. But I am down a pawn, and his pieces aren't ridiculously placed. His bishop on a5 is bad, but his knights have half-decent squares. a6 looks way too slow for me. The point is that he can bring the bishop back to b6 and a7, but I don't think his bishop's doing anything there, because it's very hard for him to undermine my pawn centre. So yeah, it looks way too slow. I think now I'm just better. Ooh. Yeah, I don't think he has an attack here, though. That's the problem, because I'm just more developed. I mean, I can even push b4 if I want to be really cruel. b4 followed by knight b3. However, what I will do instead is bishop here, threatening to take the knight and then take the pawn. So I'm guessing he's going to trade now. But then this sort of is a really nice harmonious position for my pieces, because my rooks have nice open files and G and F file. After trades, yes, I lose my dark square bishop, but my dark square bishop is probably my least good piece because my pawns are on dark squares, so it's locked in. And this bishop, my light square bishop, looks really, really nice with these dark square pawns all around it. Oh, so he plays here, saying that if I take, he's going to take back with the knight, which makes some sort of sense, I suppose. It doesn't look great, but it's not losing either. Now what looks really tempting is playing knight d2 to e4 to f6. The knight can't be too bad here anyway, so let's play that first. And give him... Again, it's this thing of, I don't know if knight f6 works, but it may work in the future, and my e4 square is good for my knight anyway, so I might as well let Pablo calculate on his time, rather than calculating on my time. Okay, d6. Now, this is logical in one sense because he wants to undermine my strong pawn centre. However, his king's still in the centre, so to me this screams some sort of tactic. But what that tactic is, I couldn't possibly tell you. The other thing to notice here is that my rook on d1 is lined up with his queen on d8. So this whole thing looks incredibly dodgy. If I just leave it and he pushes d5, then I have a beautiful square for my knight on c5. If he takes, then he opens up my rook, so I don't think he's really threatening anything here. And thus, I have to look at what I can do that's productive. Okay, I have one nice idea. I'm going to play queen to b3. And then what I do, then I'm threatening to take the pawn on b5. Because after takes and then queen takes, maybe you can just block with a bishop. That looks so bad. Ooh, what about this? Rook takes. Knight takes. Oh, this is really nice. Rook takes g7. Knight takes g7. Knight f6 check. King's only square is f8, and then I have bishop h6. And that pin looks, I mean, excruciating. To the extent that I can't not go for this. Come on, this looks way too fun. I'm pretty sure I'm winning that piece back, and then his king is just busted. I mean, look at all these pieces aimed towards his king. My knight, my two knights, my two bishops, my queen, my rook is coming back to g1, and he's got a bishop on c8, a bishop on a5 that's doing absolutely nothing, a rook on a8 that's doing nothing. His queen is stuck because this is surely busted. It's quite a nice idea. Let's play this, and then here. And then the only way of stopping the pin is to play rook. Is to play knight first. Then I can just take. If he plays rook to, yeah, let's just take that immediately. And now I can play rook here, and that knight is lost. Because if he plays rook over here, I take and then take the rook and then take the knight. Yeah, this is busted. It's quite a nice tactic to find, I think. It's one of those that I said a couple of minutes ago that something screaming tactic to me, but you couldn't quite see what it was. But it's worth pausing at those moments. I think that was when I thought for minute 45 there, look, which seems like a lot in a 5-minute game, but when you find a winning tactic, then it's definitely worth it. Now the question is, which one do I take with? What do I take? Let's take with the rook, because I think my bishop might want to come to g5. Yeah, this looks very hard to do anything about, because this knight is an absolute monster on f6. It was worth giving up. I mean, even if I didn't have these immediate tactics winning back the knight, just this unopposed knight on f6 looks completely monstrous. So, well, I could play knight takes, king takes, bishop g5 check, winning the queen, but he actually wins a lot of pieces for that, so maybe that's not sensible. So let's just take. He doesn't have any checks or anything useful, so. Okay, let's jump in here. His king has no squares, and I'm going to play bishop g5, which is going to force him to play bishop back to f8. Then I can take with check. Ooh. Yeah, let's play back here now quickly, put him under pressure, and now he has to play king f8. At which point everything just falls with check. No, where's the knockout blow? Okay, I think I have it. Let's go back here. He's going to play king back, and then I'm going to play queen b3. And the point is he can't play bishop e6 because I take and it's pinned. Yeah, that's just going to be Mate. Good game, Pablo. Let's see if he wants one more. That was quite a nice game if we go back to that position where I said that something's screaming for a tactic here, which is the point at which he played d6, because here all my pieces are doing exactly what I want them to. My rook is lined up with his queen, my bishops are pointing towards his king's side, my queen is also going to help out soon with b3 or helping my bishop. I have a nice pawn centre and his king is stuck in the centre, and my rook is on this g-file. And he's opening up the centre, which seems fairly suicidal. And you would think, I immediately thought there's a tactic here, and I was thinking about some other things for a while, like queen b3 first and stuff, but then this rook takes, here, and here's his only square, and then after here, this pin can never be stopped, because after knight here, I take, which happened in the game, and then if he goes here, I'm just going to take once, take, and then this is the same problem, or even maybe takes first, like this. One way or another, he's busted. So yeah, anyway, that's my 3 games. He clearly doesn't want a rematch, and hopefully play some more soon. And until next time, bye for now.